particular session of this video. In this video, what we are basically going to do is to work with our models.py, because this is what we're able to do at this particular point. Because when we go to this of our application, I will go to our models.py. I've not really written anything. This is our model.py. And what does this model.py actually does? I've actually explained what this model.py actually do. This particular section in this of our Django file, it actually helps us to create the database information, like how to create the table, because you know how Django tend to store information is more like a table which consists of row and columns. That's how Django tend to store information. Most of the frameworks you can use for your web development tend to store information in this method. What I mean by this, like, think of it like we're trying to create what is called a data set. You can think of it where, let's say, in a CSV format that consists of that of the row. You can say row 1. When you say row 1, you're just trying to say ID 1, but we're going to go into that. So currently this is what we're able to achieve out of this point. So I want us to also look at the review of what we have actually done, because when I wrote the CSS and the HTML, and we didn't actually when I started the web page, we didn't actually tend to see a whole lot of information. So let's go back to our, so this is going to be our template. So let's go back to our home.html. So what we actually did here in our last video, we're able to style our website by just adding some background colors, some padding, some text decorations, some margins, a whole lot of all of them. And also there was something I actually did there, because I want us to also look at this before we proceed a little bit more. When we are this dictionary type of bracket, you can say we use it to specify the content that we're interested in. And this was actually the, when we go back to our view, let's go back to our home page. You can see this was like a dummy data that we actually specified to make use of. And now as we go on, we are going to change this, because when we create our model, we are going to remove this and we are going to create it manually. So we don't need to actually so we are going to create it automatically. We don't need to actually come here and write our content, because there's no website that actually do something like this. And also here we're able to learn how to actually move information from our views. So I can say our views.py to our front end, which is that of the home.html. So that is what we are basically able to achieve. And also there's something I want us to look at here, which is this home.html. The way the information is being structured, you can see we get kind of, this is like the table data. These two guys are kind of clustered to each other, which is these two guys, delete and update. See, this is anchor tag. This signifies that this is going to be a link, but I gave it a class button, so it's going to appear in form of a button, which is this delete and update. And the information that the link that is going to be when you click on it, link that is going to get passed on to is going to, we're also going to implement all those. So let's actually head on to this of our models.py. So like I said, this model.py is where we're going to create our database information. What I mean by database information, our tables and that of the our tables entirely, and the rows and that of the comprises of the rows and that of the column. Remember that this is the overview of the site that we're trying to target. It's going to be a little bit similar to this, but it might not be the exact thing we're going to build. So when we look at this, we get something called IDE. This signifies, I can say that this is row 3. And there's some IDE are missing. The reason, because the way Django tends to store information, when you move a particular content, like when you delete a particular content, the ID is going to be zoom out. When you delete a particular row, if you watch my video on data analysis by make use of pandas, you won't find problem with this, because when you delete a particular row, when you delete a particular particular index, the information is going to be wiped out. All the other information is going to be wiped out. So you can take all this ID as part of index, and this is the tags that we're interested in. This ID is going to automatically be generated by that of the Django. So you can take all these tags as of our content that we're going to create, and then we also have this kind of date added. So this date added, we are going to try our best to do it and make use of Django commands to actually achieve this. So we don't need to manually set it like what we have been doing here in our views, because these were the things that we're interested in, from kind of information we're interested in getting. Also, so these other actions are just they're not part of what we are going to do in our models.py. So what we're actually interested in this date added and the content, I can say that of the tag. So what we're going to build, since date added, we are going to do that automatically, so we don't need to. We're going to make use of time zone in Python to actually in Django to actually handle this. And then what we are going to create is a form where somebody can actually enter content here, or where somebody can actually enter where somebody can actually try to enter information like this. We can actually enter information here. It's going to be updated in this of our task column. So as we go on, we are definitely going to understand it. And to do this, we'll say to actually create our tables like how we did in pandas, to actually create our data frame or create our data, we need to actually do it in this of the modules, which is this models.py. And to actually achieve it is basically simple. What we're going to do, we need to actually create a class. We can say this is how Django tend to do this. Basically simple. We can say a class. We intend to give our class a particular name. So I can say want to give it task because we are dealing with something like task. And the next we are going to do, we are going to inherit from this of the modules that Django tend to provide us. So we can say these modules that Django tend to provide us the what module, just simple as this. So the next we are going to do, remember that we are interested in few information, which is this tags and date added. So the ID is going to automatically be done by that of the Django. So next we are going to, let's say the content, and know when we do the content, we want the content when we are trying to put information, there should be it should be a kind of a text field for you to actually input the information. So we are going to actually set it to we'll say that our model dot what text field. This tend to have some other parameter that you can specify the amount of length, the maximum amount of length somebody can enter. I can say the minimum amount of length content somebody can decide to enter, but we are not interested in that. So the next we are going to do, we can set that of the complete. This is not actually really important much, but it's actually needed most of the time. So you can set the models dot what boolean field. This boolean field can set it default to what false. This is just trying to say, okay, the information has this been completed. So let's set it in most of the initially I can say default is being set to true, but we want to set it to false now situation. But this line is not actually really important really more. So next what we're going to do is actually that of the date underscore what added. Date added, we are going to handle this. So we can actually say our model, because we are going from this of the models that Django tend to provide us. So we can say we're going to have what our date time field. This daytime field seems to be a kind of field where we can actually tend to add the date that information is being that was created. Let's look at this guy. This is going to be similar to this. Let's look at this ID is going to be automatically generated by Django. So this content that we actually created, when we go this, remember that is our view.py. So we're actually going to specify this of the content that we're going to do. I remember that what we're creating here is actually, you can see it's kind of a form, a kind of table that before, if you watch my video on that of data analysis, remember that any information that you sent, let's say you want to create a table and they must be complete. So when we want to fill up this form, every information that was specified there must complete before the form can be valid. So but don't want it as we go on now. As we go on, we are going to definitely understand it pretty much. So as currently of now, we need to for this form to be actually valid, I can say for this table to actually a particular row in our table to be actually valid, we need to actually specify this is actually empty. We need to actually put information on it, and this stuff for our daytime field is actually going to be we need to specify. But most of the times, it's a good idea when a user tend to enter information, just have to set the date automatically. So and to do that is basically simple. So we can say from our what on this of our Django dot what utils, we want to import what want to import time zero. With the help of this time zero, we can actually specify the time. So when somebody enters, maybe somebody created a particular content, or maybe somebody created a particular task, we need to actually automatically handle that of the time. So that person does not need to put the time, though it doesn't really make sense when you create a content, maybe you create a content, or maybe uploaded a task. They have to actually set the time when you created it. I think that should be done automatically. So To do that is basically simple. So you can see that we can set our default is going to be equals to our time. This is our time zone or what now. So we need to actually get the current time that will make use of this time zone. It's just basically so this is 1 equals 2. Okay, I think with this we actually created our table. I can see I just created an information. So, but if I'm still getting confused, let's look at this a little bit more. Let me go to my WordPad. So this is my WordPad. Let's explain it a little bit more. Let me go to my pin drawing. Okay, let me drag this. Let me drag this. Okay, let's look at it. This is information that we created. This is the content complete and then date added. Let's look at this on my WordPad. Let's say I have a table that have these columns. Let's actually comment this. I can say this is the ID. Initially, this okay. Let's see. This is the content. This is the content. I say this is the date. This is the date that the information was actually being added. So let's say in a situation whereby this is going to be actually be generated by Django automatically. So let's say this will have the ID number 1. I can say index number 1, and the content that is being here, this is going to be an empty field. So it is going to be so like this kind of empty field, and the date. Let's say the date was being added. Let's say something around 2nd January. Let's say 2nd January. Let's say 2024, for example. This is the time. So when it comes to that of Django scenario, for this information to be complete, let's say when it comes to that of pandas, when you are trying to create a data frame, for example, this information must be complete. The information must be here, information must be here, information must be here, and they should be of the same. I can say that it must be of the same length. So when it comes to this of Django, so when it comes to this our models that we created here, this content, we know we have handled this automatically. We have handled this automatically. The ID is going to be handled automatically, like we can see here. The ID is going to be handled automatically. The date is going to be handled. So what we left here is the content. So we need to actually let somebody impute the content for it, because that's what the site is going to general overview is going to look like. So this is a box that I want somebody to actually impute the content on. So when somebody impute the content on, so this our table is going to be complete. This our entire table guy is going to be complete, and then we can actually make it. You can actually generate the information. You can actually save the information in our database. If you have watched my video on that of pandas series, which is data analysis, this shouldn't be confusing for you. So let's go back to what we're actually doing. So after you are done creating your models.py, you need to actually make some migration, because when we go down a little bit here, we will definitely be seeing kind of problems that we can see. So you have 18 on the migration. Your project may not work properly until you make migration for the apps, admin, auth, content type, session, blah blah blah. Run Python model.py, migrate to apply them. To do this is basically simple. What we are going to do is to actually break our server. So to do that is going to be Control C. This is going to stop our server. So the next thing we are going to do is actually to run our Python manage.py. We're going to do what? First, we are going to do is to actually make migrations. I think that's correct. We are going to hit the enter button. I can see money for tags, migration, initial.py. So let's go to our migrations. If folder was created migration, I'm going to look at this is our 00. This is our migration number. So you can see that we have actually done. Actually, let me close this up. So you can see that this is like our table class migration initial equals the 3 dependencies. They're going to be kind of empty list that have the operation, and the name is tags, because the name is what we give it tags. And then when we look at ID, it's going to be models, the big auto field is going to be auto created, primary key is going to be true, and a whole lot of other things. So we also have the content and models field. So other information here has been occupied already, including that of the ID, but our content is not what is left open. So we need to actually fill up that by making users to actually send those information. So we're going to, since we have actually initialized made the migration, we also need to actually migrate our SQL, because what will actually make is the model the what to actually make migrate. So because what we're actually using here is SQL. I think I said progress is actually for development purpose. So next what we're going to do is actually, let me go make migration. Next what we're going to do is how to migrate it for it to take effect. So we're going to say migrate, yeah, Python models.py migrate. So let's see, you can see all. Okay, it's going to run a command. Let's just wait for it to complete. It's not going to take really much time. You can see it's done running the full migrate. So anytime you make a changes to this of your model, make sure to run this of our this migration. The first thing is going to make migrate. Since you have actually run the make migration, which is this first guy, don't need to actually run it again. So anytime making changes to your model, make sure to run this Python manage.py migrate. This is in a situation where you want to actually add extra content apart from what we're actually going to do. Let's say in a situation where you might want to maybe add maybe a second task or maybe previous task. Anytime you do this on the models.py, make sure to actually run this Python money.py migrate. You can see the whole lot of bunch of things that I got around. So when we look at this migrate, okay, we have looked at this file, but in our next video we are going to look at some of the database commands so we can actually make it. We are basically going to look at few of them, which is that of the get and that of the or and a whole lot of other few database commands, because the project that we're actually building here is not too complex. So the database command we are going to make is not going to be really more. So that's basically what we are going to cover in this video. If you find this video anywhere useful, subscribe is not going to be a problem. So I'll be happy to see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.